outgoing or originating text message from his number to hers, and we don't see any of that here in the report.
So what this tells us is on the day of the homicide, on November 19, 2020, starting around 3:56, he's receiving text messages from his wife all the way until 8:14, but he's not responding to any of them.
And that's correct.
Okay.
All right, now let me give you a little bit of context. Okay, we're dealing with a homicide case. And the guy who committed the homicide, who was actually convicted of the homicide, he was married and he had babies outside of his marriage. One of his baby mothers, one of the women who he had a baby with outside of his marriage, put him on child support. He was already on child support with another baby mama outside of his marriage. All of this is going on outside of his marriage with his wife, okay? This particular baby mom's is on his neck. He already owes $29,000 in back child support. And he also owes current payments. So the way child support works is, he was put on child support when the kid was 3, he had to pay, they added up every monthly payment from the time the child was born, and that's how they came up with the $28,000 in back child support. And he also had to make the current monthly support of $740. So $740 for the current monthly support every month, and he was on a payment plan for like 70. You can get on a payment plan for the $28,000. So you don't pay off the $28,000 and they freeze the current payments. No, you have to pay both. You have to make the $740 payment a month, and you have to get on a payment plan for that $28,000. So he killed her because he didn't want to do that, because he didn't pay at all. Once the child support order was put in place, he never paid. And what they were going to do is they were going to suspend his driver's license and his professional license, his welding license. Anything that you get from the government, any certification that you get can be suspended back if you don't pay child support. Now, his alibi was, on the night of the homicide, November 19th, 2010, he was at home all day with his wife. Now, what these guys are going to do is, the cell phone expert is going to prove that his wife was actually texting his primary phone, his main phone, asking, "Where are you? Where are you? I need to stay late at work. Why aren't you responding?" Because he left his primary phone at home when he committed the homicide, and he had his burner phone with him when he committed the homicide. So check this out, and this gives you an idea of how law enforcement will track you down and figure out where you were if you lie about your whereabouts.
Again, we're able to get the text message content from the carrier, so we can see what was actually said in those text messages. We can see the first one there at 3:56 is "call me back." 4:15 is "answer the phone."
That's his wife texting him. And remember, he said he was at home all day with his wife.
To him, correct?
That is correct, yes.
No response.
There do not appear to be responses, no. We can also see the 4:56 and the 5:04 text messages. See the content that was sent there.
And it looks like this one right here, got to do math every single time, if I got to bear with me. At around 5 o'clock, she's complaining because she can't depend on him.
That's correct, yes.
Again, he's not responding to any of these text messages or inquiries from her, correct?
We don't see any text messages or phone calls going back.
So not just text messages he's not doing, he's not calling her back, he's not responding in any way, shape, or form.
And he was supposed to be at home all day with his wife on this day.
Okay. Next.
And then finally the 8:14 text message, which is the last one we saw there in that little snippet of the report, was broken up into 2 sections here, and we can read the content. Where we believe that someone was behind the keyboard, that someone had to push.
Next.
And then again, the one that we're missing, the other text messages are there. The one that we're missing is just that 11:15. Yeah, and we see the incoming call at 1:36.
Alright, so basically what's going on is, alright, this dude said that he was at home all day on the day of the homicide. And what he thought his alibi was going to be, he thought he had a great alibi. He thought that he could leave his primary phone at home, take his burner phone with him to commit the homicide, throw away the burner phone, and tell the police, "Hey, I was at home all day with my wife. Check my phone records." The police can actually tell if your phone is just sitting there without you touching it, literally just sitting there with no activity, nobody touching it, they can tell the difference between that and you actually using your phone, touching it. You know, they can tell if you're ignoring phone calls, ignoring texts, or if the phone is literally just sitting there with nobody operating it. So they were able to tell that his phone was literally somewhere in his house, his primary phone, just sitting there. And they were able to find his burner phone eventually because one of his many girlfriends outside of his marriage said, hey, I don't communicate with him on that phone. I communicated with him on this other phone. And that's how they found the burner phone. They traced his locations with the burner phone to the murder location. So as soon as his burner phone gets to the victim's house, her phone goes off the network, which means the phone was destroyed. So she had all this activity on her phone. When he gets to her house, her phone is no longer active. So you can say, yeah, he got there, killed her, and broke her phone. And then it actually shows him going back home on his burner phone. Because he didn't break his burner phone until like 3 days after the homicide. Okay? So follow me here. And the way that they can tell where you are is based on cell phone towers. Every time we go out, every time we're in the house, wherever we are, our phone is going to connect to the nearest tower. And what police do is they can approximate your location based on the tower that you're connected to. And what they do is they'll figure out which tower your phone was connected to. And each tower has sides. So your phone may be connected to a tower on the tower's east side or on the tower's west side. And they'll find another tower that's close to that tower, right? And they'll kind of triangulate you. They can figure out your approximate location, not your specific location, based on the activity of your phone connecting to that tower. They'll find a nearby tower. They'll use those two towers now, and they'll triangulate you. And they can actually say, okay, since his phone was connecting to the east side of this tower that's in this neighborhood, and since this other tower is close, we can actually say, because sometimes your phone may connect to both towers. You know, if your phone is constantly going to jump towers, they can actually triangulate your approximate location because each tower is in a certain area. So if you got a tower in your neighborhood, then, you know, your phone's connected to that tower, they can say, okay, his phone was connected to this tower, and we use this other tower that's close to that tower to triangulate him, and we can tell that he was generally in his neighborhood. So when this guy said, hey, I was at home all day with my wife, my phone was at home, and then when they found that burner phone and realized, hey, this guy was at the murder scene at the time of the murder, the victim's phone was broken at that time, destroyed, went off the network, even though she was constantly active on that phone prior to that time. And then they actually got him going back home. So they got him going to the victim's house and then going back home on at the time of the murder. So, yeah. So check this out.
Next analysis, let's turn, if we can, to the day of the 19th. And we talked a lot about Mrs. phone. Are you able to do any of the overlays or anything, or go back and look at Mrs. Peters' phone on the day of the homicide? I know we already did some of the text messages, but as far as locations go.
We can look at her location information, yes.
And did you do so?
We did look at it, yes, absolutely.
All right. Was there anything inconsistent with her being home in the evening hours of the 19th?
No, there was not. Part of the presentation here, but I can get to those time frame that we're looking at. All of those events are incoming. They're the passive events. Ones that indicates to us that the phone was actively being used.
Did you?
It again is consistent more with Ms. Peters' residence. The 601 event is communicating with a cell site even further away, but the distancing is again much closer than it would be for, given the cell site that's being used, much closer than for his residence.
Okay. Next.
We have a series of events between 6:05 and 6:33 p.m. And those, we can see there's two different cell sites that are being used in this little time group here. And if we look at those, that is the 847 cell site we saw earlier, and the other one that's a little further south. And again, if we look at the distancing from those, reported from those two cell sites, again, consistent with the Saddle Creek address.
All right, Saddle Creek is where the victim lived. So basically, this guy, his burner phone tracked him at that victim's house on Saddle Creek Drive. He was connected to 2 towers that were in her neighborhood. So they can use his connection to those 2 towers and which side of those towers. So if you're on the east side of that tower or the west side, whatever side you're connected to is going to put you in a certain neighborhood. So by him being connected to that tower, that particular side of that tower, those 2 towers, it put him right square in her neighborhood. And he told the police that he was at home all day with his wife. And he got rid of the burner phone 3 days after the homicide. But somebody told the police, hey, I communicated with him on another phone, not that number, but this number. Police got the records. They did all the analysis, and they found out, hey, this guy was at her house at the time of the murder. We actually can see him leaving his house, going to her house, killing her, then coming back home. And after he leaves her house, her phone is off the network. But prior to him coming to her house, she was on her phone 24/7 for years. Constant activity, constant activity. As soon as he gets there, her phone is dead forever. So yeah, this is how police figure out what's going on location-wise. They can figure out exactly where you're at, specifically by address, if they have some type of tracker on your phone. But generally speaking, they can't find out exactly where you are. They can only find out approximately where you are. But that's good enough, especially if you've lied about where you were to begin with.